If we were to ask the question if India, through their decision making, gave themselves the best chance of winning the T20 World Cup, the answer would be a resounding no. On November 3rd, 2021, in the aftermath of the T20 World Cup debacle in the UAE, the BCCI appointed Rahul Dravid as the head coach of the Indian side across all formats. Put simply, India under Dravid were expected to realise their potential. In other words, bag silverware. Something that they failed to do under Ravi Shastri despite being dominant. Now Rahul Dravid and his staff had 1 year, roughly 35 games, to get the team ready for the T20 World Cup in Australia. But while the journey to the 2022 World Cup started off promisingly, it became much more turbulent with time. Ultimately, the end result proved to be a catastrophic crash. Today in this video, we revisit the 12-month journey by traversing through the timeline of events and also putting forward a few burning questions for which there seem to be no answers as of now. November 3rd, 2021, Dravid is appointed head coach of the Indian side. India's squad for the T20 World Cup 2021, and there are areas in this T20 international side that needed addressing when Dravid took over. 1. Appointing a skipper. 2. Fixing the spin attack. 3. Assembling a gun-paced battery outside Bumrah, of course, with one eye on Australian conditions. And 4. Zeroing in on the wicketkeeper. And we're not done there, because grooming backups, preparing a potential plan B, was another point. Rohit Sharma was named the captain of the T20 international side, and he was the best short-term fix at the management's disposal, and it was a decision that was welcomed and celebrated, particularly because he'd won 5 IPLs as captain. While Rahul Chahar and Varun Chakravarti were discarded, it was Ravichandran Ashwin who was retained. Yuzvendra Chahal, who was snubbed for the T20 World Cup in the UAE, immediately became a mainstay in the side under Rahul Dravid. In fact, the Dravid-led management gave their full backing to someone like Rishabh Pant. Ishan Kishan featured too, but he was more of a batter than a keeper, and at no point he was a competition for Rishabh Pant. Then you have someone like Venkatesh Iyer and Akshar Patel, who were shortlisted and ready-made replacements for Hardik Pandya and Ravindra Jadeja respectively, while Shreyas was considered as Virat Kohli's possible replacement. How the aforementioned plots in this period evolved is quite shocking. On the spin bowling front, Chahal became India's number 1 option. Meanwhile, Ashwin did not feature a lot after sustaining an injury, and his spot was taken by young Ravi Bishnoi. Akshar Patel became a starter too due to Jadeja's fitness concerns. On the pace front, Mohammad Siraj faded away from the T20 international setup. However, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Harshal Patel and Deepak Chahar continued to be mainstays. The management also inducted Avesh Khan, which excited many at the time. But coming back to Rishabh Pant, who continued to be uncontested, unchallenged number 1 with the gloves, he showed positive signs too, averaging over 46 and striking over 143 in his first 5 matches under Rahul Dravid. But by the time the IPL 2022 came about, the Iyers, Shreyas and Venkatesh had put up mighty impressive numbers to say the least. Take for example Venkatesh Iyer, who grew into the finisher's role, while Ishan Kishan did not even bat with the same fluency as he did like the other two. But he continued to pile the runs on, even if he struggled. Then you have the post-IPL fallout. A long-term injury to Deepak Chahar forced the management to bring both Arshdeep Singh and Umran Malik into the scheme of things. And then you had someone like Dinesh Karthik, who made his way into the side via a remarkable IPL campaign for RCB. His numbers were so good that it was too good to be true and too good to be ignored, averaging 55 and striking, wait for it, over 180. Venkatesh Iyer completely drops out of the picture then, as he was replaced by the returning Hardik Pandya, who mind you re-entered the national side on the back of a title-winning IPL campaign with the Gujarat Titans. Then the plot evolved leading up to the Asia Cup. The management opted to rest Chahal for the first 5 matches against the West Indies, and both Ashwin and Bishnoi made the most out of the talisman's absence. Umran Malik, meanwhile, found himself alienated, and he was merely leapfrogged by Arshdeep Singh in the pecking order. And then both Harshal Patel and Jasprit Bumrah did not feature on the West Indies, as their injuries were bad enough to rule them out of the Asia Cup too. And then the Asia Cup beckoned. Rishabh Pant, once a sure-shot starter, was no longer a guaranteed pick, and his position in the 11 was under serious threat, with Dinesh Karthik faring far better. Knock knock. Then it was Deepak Hooda's turn, who barged into the picture, leaving fans questioning Kohli's spot in the 11. Deepak Hooda made it in the setup on the back of a very productive IPL 2022, and within a handful of games, he had made a huge impact. Not to forget what he did in Ireland. If you guys know, you know. Then we move on to Asia Cup and its fallouts. While Arshdeep strengthened his claim to be in the starting 11, Avesh Khan was dropped mid-tournament, and that resulted because of abysmal figures across the first two matches. Then we talk about someone like Yuzvendra Chahal, who was a lock-in heading into the Asia Cup, but that no longer was the case as the end of the tournament as the leggy underperformed big time in crunch matches, and then both Ashwin and Bishnoi enjoyed far better outings. It comes back to the story of Dinesh Karthik and dropping Rishabh Pant as keeper, but then dropping DK mid-tournament would be comical. Pant also didn't last the whole tournament, so India ended up the competition with Karthik as their wicket-keeper. Then India ended up losing Ravindra Jadeja due to injury, which was a big blow at the time. But mid-tournament, they employed Deepak Hooda and not Akshar Patel as Jadeja's replacement. Strange, some would say. Hooda was asked to bat in the lower order, and bafflingly, well, his bowling was only used in the dead rubber against Afghanistan. That too, only a solitary over. The plot thickens, guys, as the management made puzzling selection calls even after that. On the 12th of September, the BCCI named a 15-man squad for the T20 World Cup, and there were no surprises in the main 15, but a curious name popped up in the reserves in the form of Mohammad Shami. Shami was named in the squads for the Australia and South Africa T20 internationals too, but COVID ruled him out of both series. As his replacement, the management roped in Umesh Yadav, who, mind you, last played a T20 international in 2019. That Umesh leapfrogged both Avesh Khan and Umran Malik, both of whom were in the scheme of things not too long ago, and that came as a huge shock to the Indian public. And then the devastating news that Jasprit Bumrah was confirmed to be ruled out of the T20 World Cup due to injury. So then what did the management do? Well, they added two more players. First Mohammad Siraj, then Shardul Thakur, both to the reserves. Australia and the South Africa T20 International Series raised more questions about bowling than the batting. Those two series saw the return of Harshal Patel to the starting 11, but he endured a rough 6 games, taking just 3 wickets in this period at an average that we don't even want to talk about. Yuzvendra Chahal was then dropped for the South Africa series after a disappointing one in the 3 games against Australia. The positives from these two series, however, for India was that they found 3 more lock-ins in the form of Dinesh Karthik, who was a sure shot now, Akshar Patel, and not to forget, the left-armer in Arshdeep Singh. So here's how the squad looked ahead of the T20 World Cup 2022. Now we all know what transpired in Australia. India bowed out in the semis rather humiliatingly, as a result extending their trophy drought. But the campaign was not devoid of debatable selection calls. Primarily the decision to bench Chahal for the entirety of the competition, even when both Ashwin and Akshar severely underperformed. Let's face it, guys, Ashwin and Akshar were picked solely because they could bat a bit. So, it makes you think about all these burning questions facing the management. Why was Yuzvendra Chahal dropped altogether, especially in Australian conditions? If lack of batting depth was a reason for excluding Chahal, couldn't the management include Deepak Hooda? And yeah, what was the point of grooming Harshal Patel if Mohammad Shami was shoehorned in the last minute for the main event? And not to forget, how can the likes of Siraj and Thakur make the reserves ahead of him, given they literally were not even in the scheme of things? And finally, and maybe the most gut-wrenching one, why was Sanju Samson, out of all people, never given a fair run, despite him being a standard performer in the IPL? All said and done, undeniably, untimely injuries went a long way in derailing India's bid to win the T20 World Cup 2022. But if you were really honest, if we were asked the question to India through their decision-making, giving themselves the best chance of winning the T20 World Cup, the answer would still be a resounding no. For the truth is, after spending an entire year convincing the world that they would not commit the same mistakes that the previous management did, Rahul Dravid and company went against their words and pressed the panic button the moment they were confronted by pressure. That is the story. Let us know in the comments below if you agree or disagree. Thanks for watching this cricket.com video. More to come. Watch this space.